In this video, we are looking at subtraction. In the previous video, we looked at addition, and we saw, for example, that 17 plus 5 is 22, and we can do that simply by counting along. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. I've counted 5 further along, so 17 plus 5 is 22. Now, subtraction is effectively the opposite. If I started off with 22, and I subtracted 5, what I would need to do is count down 5. So from 22, I would count down 21, 20, 19, 18, 17. So addition and subtraction are inverses or opposites of each other in this sense. Let's take a look at this example first. 62 minus 21. Now that is the correct way of saying this, 62 minus 21. But what you might find is that a lot of teachers won't use the word minus because they don't want to get confused with negative numbers, which we'll look at in another video. So what I'm going to do is actually say 62 subtract 21 every time we see this symbol here. So 62 subtract 21 can be done using a column method, just like with addition. The first important thing is to make sure you've got your place value columns in line. We are subtracting, so I'm going to put that symbol there. Now, what are we doing? We've got 2 units or 2 ones, and we need to subtract 1 unit or 1, 1. 2 subtract 1 is just 1. Next, we move on into the tens column. 62 has got 6 tens. We need to subtract 2 tens. That's the 2 tens of the 21. 6 subtract 2 is 4. So 62 subtract 21 is 41. It's really important that we get the order correct. So we are taking this number at the bottom off the number above. So we're taking the 2 off the 6, or the 2 away from the 6 to end up with the 4 here, not the other way around. Here I want to do 83 subtract 37. I'm going to write them out in columns. 83, 37, there's my subtract. Now this time we've got a problem. We've got 3 units in 83, but what I want to do is subtract 7 units. 7 is more than 3. So what we need to do is actually exchange one of the tens that we've got here. So I'm going to take one of these tens, which leaves me with 7, and I'm going to exchange that 10 for 10 units. And if I have 10 units extra, I'm now going to have 13 in this place value column. So I've exchanged one of the tens for 10 units. That leaves me with 7 tens in this column, and I've now got 13 units in that column. And if we subtract 13 subtract 7, we end up with 6 here, and now we can do 7 subtract 3, which is 4. So 83 subtract 37 is 46. We can try and see what's going on using some place value counters. So if I have my place value columns, tens and ones, 83 has got 8 tens and 3 units. And what we want to do is subtract 37. So I need to take away 3 tens and 7 units. The problem is I haven't got 7 units here to take away. So what I do is I exchange one of these tens into 10 units, because that's what each one of these tens is worth. So instead of one of these, I can now put on 10 units in here. So now look at what we've got here. We've got 7 tens and 13 units. This is still 83, and this is effectively what we end up with when we do this calculation. I end up with 7 tens and 13 units. And that means I can now subtract 7 of these units for the 37. That leaves me with 6 units, and then I need to subtract the 3 tens. So I've taken away 3 tens and 7 units, I've taken away the 37, and I'm left with 4 tens and 6 units, 46. So that's why we exchange when we need to. If we need to subtract a larger number from a smaller number, what you have to do is try and go to the next place value column along and exchange. In this example, I want to do 601 subtract 246. So I've got them in my columns, units, tens, hundreds. Now we've got the problem. We want to subtract 6 units from 1 unit, which we can't do. So what we want to do is exchange from the next place value column along. But we've got another problem now. We haven't got any tens in 601 that we can use to exchange into 10 ones. So what we need to do is go to the next place value column. So from the 600s, we will use one of those hundreds and exchange it for 10 tens. So if I exchange one of these hundreds, I'm left with 5 hundreds in there, and I've now got 10 tens. So the 1 and the 0 put together there are 10 tens. And I can use one of these 10 tens to exchange them into 10 units. So if I take one of these, I've now got 9 tens left there, and the 10 that I'm using, I turn into 10 units and take it over into the units column, which means I've got a total of 11 units now. Now I can do 11 subtract 6, which is 5. I can do 9 subtract 4, which is 5 again, and I can do 5 subtract 2, which is 3. So 601 minus 246 is 355. So the important thing here is that if you need to exchange from the next place value column along, and that is a 0, you need to keep going along until you get to a place value column where you can exchange. Here we started off with 600s. We exchanged one of those hundreds for 10 tens, and then one of those tens for 10 units. That's how we ended up with 11 units in here. Here are 2 questions for you. Pause the video and have a go. Here are the answers. First, I need to subtract 8 units from 6 units. 8 is more than 6, so what I need to do is exchange this 10 here for 10 units. That leaves me with 0 in the tens column, and I've now got an extra 10 units in my units column, which means I've got 16 units altogether, 16. 16 subtract 8 is 8. Now I need to do 0 subtract 9 in the tens column. 9 is more than 0, so I'm going to have to exchange. I'll exchange one of these hundreds. That leaves me with 4 hundreds in there. And that 100, I'm exchanging it for 10 tens. So I've got 10 in the tens column now. 10 subtract 9 is 1. Then I've got 4 in the hundreds column, subtract nothing. So that gives me 4. So 516 minus 98, or 516 subtract 98, is 418. Next, we've got 302 subtract 249. 9 is more than 2, so what we need to do is try and exchange from the next place value column. But we've only got 0 in the tens column up here, so we need to go to the next one along. I'm going to exchange one of these hundreds for 10 tens, and then we can exchange one of these 10 tens for 10 units. So now I can do 12 subtract 9, which is 3, 9 subtract 4, which is 5, and 2 subtract 2, which is nothing. So I could put a 0 in there, but we don't really need it because that would just say 053, which is just 53. So this is 53. Finally, pause the video and have a go at this one. Here's the answer.